I don't want to give people this sort of polished version of healing. We spend a lot of time online talking about what healing looks like, but I'm going to do something different on my channel and just talk about what this actually really looked like for me, because I think that a lot of people think that healing looks strong and clear, and it doesn't usually look like that. It's messy. It's something people need to know, that it's difficult and you have low moments. So for me, my lowest possible moment, I'm embarrassed to even admit this, but the truth is, this is how bad trauma bonds get. I asked the woman that my partner was cheating on me with if she could give him back to me. Let me have him, right? We had kids, and I knew that he wasn't going to stop seeing her. So I went to her and I was like, can you please leave him alone? Let me just sort this out. Let me figure out my life. I need you to go away. If he calls you, I want you to ignore him. But do you see how bad that is? I've said this once or twice online. I rarely share the story because the amount of people that are like, girl, I would never. You think you would never. I thought I would never. I am acknowledging that is my lowest possible moment. Look how low that was. Crying so hard that I thought something was wrong with my chest. I was, 36 years old, Googling, can you die from crying? I was in the bathroom scream crying into towels so that my kids wouldn't hear me. I stood in a grocery store in the yogurt section crying, trying not to break down, because I suddenly realized yogurt drinks for little kids are wildly expensive when you have no money, when he'd taken everything. Now, that version of me is healed, right? That's not the version that people see, but that is the version of me that got out of this. And that's the one I want to talk about. What does healing actually look like? So for those that don't know me, welcome to me, Lisa Sonni. I have now written 5 books. I specialize in breaking trauma bonds. I have learned way more than I ever wanted to know about abusive and toxic relationships. And this is actually what I do. I speak about this very publicly. I speak internationally. And this is my work full time. I work with women. I help them exit these relationships with these kinds of men, and I help them rebuild after. And I tell you, there's no better education than doing it yourself, than actually walking this walk. So let's kind of back up. There is this belief that women who have been in abusive relationships have no self-worth, right? That's the common thing that we always hear, right? You just need more self-worth. The truth is, I never thought that I didn't have self-worth. I definitely would have answered the question with, I absolutely have self-worth. I also didn't recognize that what I was going through was abuse. But I will say that I don't think that I was acting in a way that demonstrated respect for myself, right? I was hopeful. I wanted it to work out. I was actually fully convinced, even when things were falling apart, that it could in fact still work. I did not believe that it was over. Now, all the clear signs of it absolutely being over were basically there, but you're in disbelief. When you're in a trauma bond, when you're experiencing cognitive dissonance, I feel like I was living it and also living in just a constant state of this can't possibly be happening all at the same time. So I was obsessing, ruminating, looping, all the things that we hear. And I was really thinking about him pretty constantly at this point and trying so hard to push him out of my mind. Was still helping him with his business despite all of this. I was still constantly showing up for him, doing things for him, and none of it made any sense. So I was constantly questioning myself, knowing I shouldn't be doing it anyway, acting against my own instincts, because none of it made sense to me. And there was a moment truly where I could not unsee what was actually happening. So I'm going to tell you this really pivotal moment. This is when I was sitting at my kitchen table. I was feeding my kids dinner, and I got a phone call, and it said private number. And I don't know why, but there was something in me that was like, this is going to be a bad phone call. But I answered, and it was the police. So I was obviously shocked, but the police could not possibly have shocked me more. So this officer said to me, you need to stop harassing your partner's girlfriend. And then he corrected himself and said, oh, sorry, I mean your ex-partner. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying to me right now. I don't have an ex-partner. The person you're talking about is my partner. And he was like, okay, well, I don't want to get involved, but I just need you to stop harassing this specific person. And he said a name that I'd never heard before. So I was completely confused. How am I harassing a person I've never even interacted with and I don't know about? And this officer very quickly understood that he had just told me that my partner had a girlfriend. That was the first time I'd ever heard that. The officer absolutely was like, oh, now I understand what just happened here. So that's brutal, right? Having that message delivered by not only a third party, but a police officer. So in that moment, it was like, oh my God, everything stopped. And it's not like in that moment I broke the trauma bond, but I will tell you, in that moment, I absolutely was like, this has to stop. I have to do something different. Like something in me, I think, knew that that was real, and that feeling stayed. So despite the fact that I couldn't shut off my feelings, my actions needed to be different. That I absolutely knew. So start packing up my house over the next few weeks. We were selling the house, moving, all of this. So we were talking action, right? But I'm telling you, none of it felt real. It's like I was going through the motions, but nothing was clicking for me. I still was in complete disbelief, crying constantly. I was crying in my car, in my closet, in the grocery store. Like I said, I was just beside myself, random places. My chest hurt. I was riddled with anxiety, just unable to breathe half the time. So it was kind of this weird place where I see a lot of women now. It's like you're functioning and falling apart at the same time. And the longer you do this, right, the more it becomes normal. None of this is normal. This is not the way people operate. But there's something that really changed at one point. This was a decision that I made. I stopped contacting him. The only reason I would ever reach out was specifically relating to the kids, right? I cut off all conversations about us. And he was still very much interested in having these conversations about us and talking about what the future would look like and, when we get back together, when we this, blah, blah. I was like, I'm not entertaining these conversations anymore. I still had hope, but I was trying to suffocate that hope. I was trying to just cut it off completely and not feel it anymore. And I figured, maybe I'll ignore these feelings or just power through them. Truth be told, I was white knuckling it through this. I wasn't even in therapy at the time. So hear me when I say I had hope, but I didn't act on the hope. And that matters because my actions did not match my feelings at all. And I see that all the time. And that's hard, right? To not actually do the thing that you feel like you're being driven to do. I was moving forward while still attached, while still trauma bonded. So both of those things can be true at the same time. So this isn't like a clean way to do this, right? I think we want to feel like this is the right decision. So now I'm going to take the action. And most of the time you got to take the action and your feelings will eventually catch up with you. And that is very true for me. Now, the truth is, I knew it was over. I absolutely did, but I kind of still couldn't accept that it was over. So even though I was taking the action, the whole time I was thinking, this cannot be happening. This is a nightmare. And I honestly want to admit, I felt like this is going to resolve itself. Somehow, some way, I don't know, the universe is going to fix this for me because this is not my reality. But I was living these two realities, right? Hating what he did, even hating him for what he did, while simultaneously loving him. Welcome to a trauma bond, right? Hating myself for still loving him. I used to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you stupid woman, you idiot. What is wrong with you? Why do you love him? You're such an idiot. I was shaming myself. By the way, don't do that. That's a horrible way to talk to yourself, and it doesn't help you. So I was embarrassed by my behavior. I was judging myself for it. And the truth is, I know that sometimes the people around you can judge you a lot too. I didn't really have that. I was so lucky to have a really good support system. Nobody was judging me, but I know that the people around me didn't understand, despite the fact that they weren't judging me. But all of this, it was like I was letting go, but I really wasn't totally letting go. I wanted to truly hate him, but I think I was just trying to feel something that wasn't quite there. I had all kinds of anger at what he did. Isn't it weird how none of this just means that you don't care about the person anymore? So I also want to tell you, though, about what doesn't work, what didn't work for me. People would say, just don't think about him. Just shut it off. Just think about something else. That's not helpful, okay? When you are consumed with something and you're ruminating, there are reasons why our brains loop. There's something unresolved. Our brains want resolution. We want clarity. That's what human beings are seeking. So when you're consumed, you can't just say, don't think about him. Does that ever work? Of course not. The other thing people would say, which was, in a good place, of course, and people trying to be supportive, but like, screw him. He's an a-hole. You could do better without him. Who cares? You care. I cared. That's kind of the friggin' problem, is it not? Like, caring is the problem. If you could just shut it off, you would. Dating too early definitely didn't work. I went on a horrendous date, like just the worst possible date with such a weird person. And that was like, oh my God, is this what's out there? Oh my God, like, how bad is he really that I'm leaving instead of going out in this dating world. And the truth is, this is years later that I'm telling this story. I feel like the dating pool is a little bit even worse now. And that's really discouraging, right? But the truth is, I want to throw something back that a lot of men say. This is the only context you'll ever hear me say this, which is not all men. Not all men are awful. Not all men go on bad dates and show up in terrible ways. There are absolutely good men out there, but don't date too fast. No matter what, even if you're dating a good guy too fast, don't date too fast. That was a disaster because I wasn't ready at all, and it felt awkward even being on the date. But I feel like I was trying to match what he was doing, right? He already had a girlfriend. He was already totally in a complete relationship with someone else. And really, as it turns out, had been in a relationship for like 7 or 8 months when we were still together. So all of this made it worse. I needed space. I did not need distraction, and dating was a distraction for me. The hardest parts of all of this for me was not thinking about him. I think that was probably the hardest part. I think catching my own thoughts as they were happening was incredibly hard, shifting it back to me. Because you hear a lot of people talk about this, coaches, therapists, right? Bring your feelings to awareness, feel them, acknowledge them, and then you can start to have more control over your own thoughts. But when you're spiraling out, that's hard. Catching yourself in actual real time, that is so hard. So I would just, try this over and over again. And I know it kind of sounds simple, right? Just bring it back to you. But if you've done it, if you've even tried to do it, you know how hard this is. So you have to kind of bring it back to yourself. And that requires so much daily effort. And that's a lot of work, and it's uncomfortable work. Now, it does help. This is what I'm saying to do. I'm just acknowledging that it is difficult to do it when you're in the throes of the worst breakup of your life. Now, what actually did help me when I finally got back into therapy. Therapy was life-changing for me, but I do want to say the right therapist matters so much, not just therapy. There are so many therapists out there that have no sweet clue about domestic violence, narcissism, abuse, trauma bonds, the amount of misinformation that I have heard from my clients talking about what therapists said. Like a trauma bond is when two people go through a trauma and then bond over that. No. A trauma bond is an unhealthy attachment that exists only in a relationship where there's an oscillation of kindness and cruelty, and it creates a really deep and unhealthy attachment. You need a therapist who understands that, who understands not only what cognitive dissonance is, but how to really help you resolve traumatic cognitive dissonance. So really do the research out there, get yourself into coaching or therapy, but with someone qualified, somebody who understands the dynamic, doesn't minimize it, and it could actually sit in it with you. A relational coach or therapist who gets it. That mattered. So, bless my therapist. Absolutely incredible. I stopped talking to everyone about everything. You need to kind of contain it. You're going through something that's like the worst thing of your life. And I know we talk to everyone, anyone who will listen practically, right? You're telling everyone what's going on, what they're doing in post-separation abuse. I had to stop all of that and just sit with my own thoughts first. I had to really change how I processed things. And this is kind of where I shifted. This is when I started making content. And I started making content on TikTok just as some woman from somewhere who was going through a breakup with someone narcissistic. And I just wanted to talk about what I was going through. It was kind of for me. I'm old enough that Facebook and Instagram are what I'm more used to. And I don't think I fully understood the weight of TikTok, especially back in 2020, 2021, how quickly things can grow and how public the content is, because this quickly turned into a pretty significant following on TikTok and people relating to me. So it was an incredibly healing experience to share how I was getting myself out when other women were going through the same thing. So I kind of found a community there. This all helped me come back to myself in such great ways. Now, along the way, there were a lot of hard truths that I had to face. And the first one was that I was not as strong as I thought I was. I really thought I'm a strong person. I can do this. This makes sense. I saw myself as strong at work in my old career, my old life. I was authoritative. I was a leader. I was an executive. This all didn't make sense to me, that I was this weak, crying failure. None of those things are actually true, of course, but it's how I felt. I was capable and put together and a problem solver. Turns out also an overfunctioner, a fixer, those things. But me falling apart over a man, right? I could not see myself that way. And interestingly, people talk all about the cognitive dissonance that you feel with the person, right? They are good and they are bad. what about the cognitive dissonance you see yourself, right? This is like, I would never be in an abusive relationship, but I'm in one. I would never let a man treat me like this, but I'm doing it. So we don't see ourselves in this way. And yet here we are, attached to someone who hurts you. And I did not want to let go, even while I was leaving. And I think that's the part that some people struggle to admit, is that you want to leave, but you don't want to leave. You actually just want them to go back to the version of them that you fell in love with, right? Facing reality changes everything. So reality testing is a great skill to learn. Now, there's an expression that I absolutely hate, which is time heals all wounds. Time doesn't fix this. Time doesn't fix anything, okay? Time is not the thing. Time does not heal all wounds. It's what you do with the time. You actually have to be doing something. This takes effort. And I'm talking daily, intentional, uncomfortable effort constantly. You have to catch your thoughts. You have to look at yourself, not him, right? All the healing, you get your little PhD in narcissistic abuse from YouTube University. Go do that. That's important. That's step one. But you actually need to flip everything and look at yourself. What got you here? Just from a place of curiosity, no judgment. Just look at whatever felt normal about this relationship. Why did you let a man treat you like this? No judgment, because why? Survival, fear, there's a million reasons. And they are valid, good reasons. People on the outside act like, there's no good reason to stay with an abuser. Might not be a good reason, but it's a reason, and it's still a valid reason. So shifting things back to you again and again, just repetitiously, that is what changes things. So now, after I have been through all of this hell, all kinds of violence, I have faced every form of domestic violence that a person can face. A little bit of a trigger warning here, but I've been thrown up a staircase and beaten in my kitchen. I have been chased down the street barefoot with my child in my arms. I've had my head slammed into a steering wheel. I have had his hands wrapped around my throat while I was 7 months pregnant. I have experienced financial abuse, psychological abuse, every form you can imagine, sexual coercion, sexual assault. It was nonstop for a decade. But where am I now, 6 years out? After all of this time, I made sure that I have stayed in therapy. I run my own coaching business, and my education absolutely comes from my lived experience, but I also have 7 certifications, and I travel internationally to speak on this topic because more people need to know all of the messy healing that takes place when you get yourself out of a relationship like this. Now, I feel regulated and solid and clear. I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I will never tolerate. And I just don't get pulled the same way. My ex had a really great way of baiting me into arguments. I can't be baited into an argument anymore. I don't question myself anymore. I don't stay in relationships of any kind that hurt me. I know exactly who I am, and I trust myself. I can validate myself. These are skills you can learn. And 6 years ago, Lisa, thought this was nonsense. I thought these people online that talk about healing and self-love, I was like, you people go home and cry in your pillows at night. I don't buy it. You're selling something. I don't buy it. And I discovered that this is absolutely real. If you feel at your lowest point and you feel like you're never going to get over the person, let's say you're even over the person out of the relationship and you just feel like you're never going to pick the right person, so you're scared to date, or you're never going to have good relationships. You're never going to really love yourself. You absolutely can. This is possible. I said this earlier. I'm just some woman from somewhere. If I can do it, anyone can do it. None of this is easy, And honestly, this isn't about getting over him. The truth is, this isn't about him at all. This is about getting back to yourself. This is what this is about. You can love yourself. Now, I teach this. So subscribe if you're not already, because on my channel, I talk specifically about exposing abuse tactics and how we can heal from having been through these horrendously abusive relationships. So if you're ready to do the work, not just understand it, but actually take action to change your life, you can work with me in one-on-one sessions, or you can join any of my group coaching programs. Thanks so much for watching. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.